Kingdoms rise and empires crumble, and the knowledge and wisdom from past ages are lost to the foggy ruins of time. But for genuine seekers of truth, one place stands alone on a hill. Shining brightly in the darkness, you, dear listener, have reached the Hidden Citadel.
Hey, welcome to another exciting episode of Monkey Investigates. I don't think Monkey is on the monkey cam today. We'll have to check back later and see if he shows up. But until then, you can see some of his crazy adventures down below. We are going to pick this one up where I think we were talking. This is the Voynich manuscript, Devil's Bible, and the Book of Kells. We were talking about the Book of Kells, and somehow we got on the subject of Leonardo da Vinci, and so I think we're finishing that up and getting ready to go back to talk about the Book of Kells, or possibly the Gigas Codex, or the Codex Gigas. You know,
that's
it's like
amazing.
It's a pretty cool stuff.
Yeah,
you know?
and you know, it seems like he had not only an interest in flying, but he had a lot of detail to show that, you know, it didn't look very speculative. Like it looked like it was a product of trial and error. Probably not that much error, but I mean enough. There's enough.
Well, and all the detail.
Not technology, but enough. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, he would think of things like a screw. A screw can actually move water through a trough, so a screw could move air.
Yeah.
And so one of his early flying designs was a flying screw. Mm-hmm. It's like, you know, who would have thought of that other than somebody like Da Vinci? And then he had a glider that was based off of the way birds' wings work, you know, and it's just, I mean, the guy was so fascinating, everything about him, but it's a mystery, and that brings us to our final manuscript, which is the Codex Gigas.
Yeah,
and the story behind the Codex Gigas is that Herman the monk was basically being punished for doing something evil, and we don't know what, but he does list his sins in the Codex, and it's like he decided, I'm going to try out every last sin that I can think of, because they're all in there, and he says that he did them all. So it's like, even some really bad stuff that we shouldn't mention on YouTube. But, so Herman, he's done all these evil things, and they decided, okay, we're going to wall you up in a wall alive, and that's going to be your punishment for this. So as they're putting him in the wall and the bricklayers are coming in and they're bricking up the wall, he's begging the abbot, give me another chance, give me another chance. And the abbot basically is teasing him, and he says, fine, if you can write a book in one night that contains all of the world's in wisdom, then we won't wall you up in this wall. And he says, okay, I can do that. And they're like, really? And he's like, yeah, I just need this much manuscript paper to do it. And they're like, okay. So they put him in a locked room. They brought him a bunch of quills and ink and a stack of parchment. And what's weird is they know that this parchment all dates to the same time period, and that it was all, you know, made by the same methods, you know, so they can tell that this isn't like parchment that was made over a long period of time. This all was done like right at the same time. Mm-hmm. Then the other thing they know from the Codex is everything that's written in it was all written in the same time by the same person. And the other thing is there are absolutely no mistakes in the Codex either. And so this guy, basically, they're like, well, how did he do it? And so he said in his own testimony that he had to make a deal with the devil. Mm-hmm. This is the first deal with the devil story.
Yeah.
And he makes a deal with the devil, and the devil shows up and he says, okay, I can do this. So they include the New Testament If you're interested, we did do early on, I think it was our 4th or 5th episode, was Down at the Crossroads. Maybe it was a little bit later. Maybe it was like the 10th episode. But we did a whole series on myths and legends about people who allegedly sold their soul to Satan. If I remember right, it was a pretty good episode. But it was like this where we didn't have our video, but, you know, the audio is probably halfway decent on it. The Old Testament, and we're talking about with the Apocrypha.
Yeah.
They also have the complete works of Josephus, which is what, like 7 books or something like that.
Yeah.
It's got a couple medical treatises. It's got the Rule of Saint Benedict, and like
Book
3 or 4
Enoch?
or 5.
Is Enoch in that too?
I don't think it has Enoch in there, but it should. It might as well.
Mm-hmm.
The reason it didn't have Enoch is because by the time the Codex Gigas was written, the book of Enoch had been pretty much forgotten. And we're talking about, I mean, probably 1,200 years before, you know, since the last person had ever given Enoch any kind of credibility. So it was a long time after that. So it's not really a wonder. It's not like conspiracy that Enoch wasn't included. It just nobody knew about it at that time, really. Just say it does.
What's funny is the deal with the devil. You know, it's like, you know, I can't even make a comparison for that, but it's like the last book I think would, you know, the last book that I would think that he'd want in his pure form would be something that
would be the Bible.
Is something as impressive and as evangelistic as the Bible.
Yeah, well, and the other thing about it that's interesting is it's the first iconography of the devil looking like a beast in European history. So normally when they would draw the devil, they would draw him like any other angel, but they might put like a black robe on him or some other colored robe that was different than the other angels, so you knew that it was the devil.
Yep.
But in this one, right in the middle of the book, it's got a big picture, and actually there's several pictures throughout the book of the devil, but it's got a big picture of this demonic-looking creature right next to a picture of what's supposed to be the heavenly city.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it's saying you can go one way or the other. Well, anyway, the legend is that Herman finishes the book with the devil's help, or the devil did it for him or something, and the abbey has to keep its word and say, okay, the abbot says we're not going to wall you up, but you're not allowed to live here anymore and you need to go somewhere else. So he wanders all over and he's feeling miserable because he knows he sold his soul to Satan, and he knows that when his death comes he's going to go straight to hell, and there isn't even purgatory for him. He's pretty convinced that he's done until the Virgin Mary shows up and says, are you contrite? And have you really repented of this evil, horrible thing that you've done? And he's like, yeah, and he's weeping and wailing in misery, and so she absolves him of his sin, and then he dies like later, and he goes right to heaven. I don't understand the whole concept of absolution, because why do we have a judgment day if, I mean, or why is there any kind of, how can you have in the same doctrine the idea of a sort of judgment afterwards that decides whether you go to purgatory or not, but then you also have absolution, and it's like, it seems as if the absolution is kind of pointless if purgatory exists. It's like, I don't understand how those two doctrines ever existed at the same time. They seem almost mutually exclusive to me. Maybe if somebody knows, you can put that down in the comments and kind of explain it to me.
So she got her man?
She got her man.
Her man.
So, yeah, her man. You know, Greg, my entire 30 years of knowing him, he is a very punny guy, and I'm never expecting his puns half the time. So please don't think bad of me when it takes me a minute to figure them out. So
her man,
yeah. So good old Herman, he gets sent to heaven. Here's the thing: I don't know if any of that's true. But what we do know about the book is somebody wrote it all in one shot. Because if a person were to write journals,
Yeah.
you would look at their handwriting when they were young,
Yep.
and then you would compare it with their handwriting when they're old, and it would change over time.
Yeah.
The other thing we know about it is he writes with unusual letter choices that are peculiar to just the Codex Gigas.
Mm-hmm.
Like the G's are peculiar to Herman.
Yeah.
Nobody else uses G's like that in Ionic or whatever the heck that script is called. The changing of age would even introduce certain things like, even if you wrote exactly the way like you were a trained artist and a trained scribe, by the time you were older, your hand would start to shake. And so you would have like little minor fluctuations at the end of the book compared to what you started with at the beginning, and none of that is present. So my thinking on the matter is this. I think Herman was an incredibly trained scribe.
Yeah.
I'm thinking he must have been about 30 when he started the manuscript. They say that it would have taken literally 30 years to complete the manuscript, not counting the illustrations.
If you wrote,
What is
it? If you wrote every day for like 10 hours?
Every single day, all day long.
No.
And I'm like, I don't know how it's possible. I'm just trying to think of a possible thing. If he was such a good artist that he had his technique down and he could do it faster than everybody else. But they were saying this part of that whole thing about writing 10 hours a day was including you have to cut your nibs and you have to fix your ink and you have to do that kind of stuff.
Or eat.
And that's going to take time, and you got to eat. And that's going to take time, and it's like, you got to...
Monks did an awful lot of fasting, so who knows?
Factor all that stuff in, and everybody's like, I don't know how anybody could have produced this thing. It's flawless. And it literally should have, like, if you add the drawings, it should take a person about 60 years probably to do this at a normal pace if you just, were not producing 10 pages a day or 10 hours a day or whatever the estimate was. And it's like nobody 60 years working on something is going to have the same handwriting.
That's fascinating.
It's not going to look like that.
Now, but you couldn't have someone who is so, or several people who are so skilled at replicating. They couldn't all just be working just to, this is the way we're going to...
No, because they don't... There are techniques that they're not going to look the same. Like, if you have... like, let's say you make a line, and the way you make your E is to draw the middle line slightly longer. The next guy might not know to draw his line slightly longer like that, and every single E in the book looks exactly the same.
No.
It's little things like that. And here's the thing, though. This gets into our whole idea of the fairies and how when the fairies take somebody away, they could be gone
Here it is.
for 30, 50, 100
This is one of our favorite topics on the Hidden Citadel, time displacement.
years. And when they're brought back, they think they've only been away for a night.
Wow.
But somehow time stopped. Moses, when he went up on the mountain to meet with God, he's gone for 40 days. He comes down from the mountain, throws a fit, breaks the 10 Commandments, grinds up the golden calf, and there's nowhere that it says that he eats in that time period.
Yeah.
And then he goes back up on the mountain and he fasts again for another 40 days. Now,
we're going to talk more about that when we come back from a break. I would like you to know about the Hidden Citadel 4.wordpress.com, where we have an awful lot of articles about a lot of the topics that we cover, and some of them that are like maybe they're more sciencey, math based, where we needed to do a lot of figuring. That's where we'll put all the math. because we don't really want to talk about it and bore everybody on the show. But that's a good place. There's also some really in-depth studies on some of the old child ballads, and there's delving into the etymology of Nimrod's name. There's all sorts of fun articles over there at hiddencitadel4.wordpress.com. And we would love it too if you would share our videos with your friends, because we're kind of a small channel, and any help you can give us would really be a big, big help to us.
Mysteries abound in this world. Who built the Great Pyramid or the Tower of Babel? Did Noah's flood interact with the timeline of the dinosaurs? If you are a fan of paranormal investigations, fringe history, and the downright mysterious, then the Hidden Citadel is the community for you. What is the Hidden Citadel? Every week, theologian Willy Minnix, psychologist Greg Kemp dive into biblical mysteries and unexplained phenomena that your Sunday school teacher was too afraid to tackle. We explore if Bigfoot is an interdimensional entity, a fairy, a djinn, or a gray-style extraterrestrial encounter, or perhaps elemental spirits serving the watchers, finishing the job the Nephilim started. From the megalithic ruins of Namidal and Pumapunku to the ancient engineering of Tiwanaku and Göbekli Tepe, we treat these archaeological enigmas as our home base. If you are brave, curious, and have an open mind for esoteric research, welcome to the Citadel. If you want to support our deep dives, check out the links to our exclusive gear below.
If you like that music, that was Journey to Mars by the Fantastic Flying Frogs, which is my band, and you can see Monkey here playing keyboards in the band. Greg has a band called the Brothers Graham, and you can get his music. He also plays in another band, I can't remember the name of it, but they do a lot of live gigs around Westchester, so if you're ever in New York and you want to see him live, you can check him out. The chances of seeing me live are pretty slim to none, because the Fantastic Flying Frogs is pretty much just me, and every once in a while I get some friends to jump in on the recordings, so I don't really do live shows of the frog material. But anyway, you can check it out at Spotify or really anywhere you can listen to music. There was one other thing I wanted to tell you, but I guess I'll tell you later because I can't remember what it was. And now we will jump back into more of the Codex Gigas.
I don't know about you, but I've fasted for 7 days and I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I can't imagine fasting for 80 days.
Yeah.
The longest fast that we know of is this guy in Scotland weighed 350 some pounds or 400 pounds, and he fasted for a whole year. But he did it by being incredibly hydrated and given lots of vitamins to help him get through this fasting period. Moses didn't have that. It was almost as if time just stopped, you know. And it's like we hear about like the guy that in Ireland that he rode, the fairies took him, he rode his horse. When he came back, his companions got off their horses before they were supposed to, and they immediately turned to dust because he had been gone 300 years. Or
I've got a really good book. It's an old book. I don't know who wrote it, but it looks like it was published in, I don't know, maybe the 60s or the 70s. It's called Celtic Fairy Tales. If you want to read really good stories, that's a really good book to check out.
Child ballad of Thomas the Rhymer, where he comes back and all of his family is old and dead because he's been away with the fairies for so long.
And we have a trilogy that we're planning in the very near future of Tamlin, maybe Thomas the Rhymer and King Orfeo are three child ballads that are really, really cool, and we'll probably do a trilogy about those three ballads, and I think that you guys are really going to like those when they come out.
And so I'm like, well, if you could go into fairyland and you could work on this for 60 years,
Yeah.
and you think, well, I've only been working on this, but I'm getting a lot done. It's only been a week, you know, and then all of a sudden, and it's kind of like this. Okay, do you remember when I was working on the Smidge tale, the Smidge hunt?
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting ready to talk about a book that I've never published, but the other day I found, after a long time thinking it was lost, I actually found the original manuscript. So possibly sometime next year, if I get time, I may actually publish this story that we're discussing here, which is one of the first stories that I wrote when Greg and I had the year we met each other.
Well, I lived in Nyack, and I lived right on the Hudson. I don't think you ever came to, maybe you came to my apartment one time, but I lived right on the Hudson, and my window overlooked the Hudson River, and there were times when I would be working on the paintings for that story that never got published. Maybe if I could find them again, maybe I could publish it someday. But anyway, the point was, I would be working on those paintings, and I would start, it would be like a Saturday, and I'm like, 8 in the morning, and I'll I'll just start working. And then the next thing I notice, it's like, wait a minute, it's starting to get dark out, and I'm like, oh gosh, it's 6 o'clock at night, and I didn't even realize that I don't even remember spending that much time working on the painting. But there is something about creating artwork that you can completely lose track of time. And now, if this guy, Herman, was somehow able to go into a trance and hyper focus like that and just really crank through stuff, maybe it is possible that he could produce stuff a lot quicker than people normally can.
Yeah. I mean, going back to the idea that, how was creation? What was creation? Was creation over a period of time? Was time created? Was when let the birds of the air fill, let when that was done, was that instantaneous? Because that was it was the occurrence of an abundant, if it was instantaneous, an occurrence of abundance in a relatively short time, the time it takes just to be able to speak something into existence. So that kind of like quantum, or that kind of physics, or that kind of the law there, whatever, if it applied to Christ, and if we are in Christ and are like Christ, or have, when he says all this and more, is that possible that some of those elements are somehow for Christ's purpose then put within us?
Yeah, and
or having
also
access
that brings up another interesting thing. If we were to use our own reckoning, Jesus was only in the tomb for a day and change. But they said he's going to be in the tomb for 3 days, which means scholars say, well, he was put in the tomb at the end of one day. He was in the tomb all the day the next day, and he was partially in the tomb in the morning of the other day. And that's how they justify it. But what if it's more than that? What if he was in the tomb for 3 days in the spiritual realm, but it only was a day or something in our realm? I mean, there is something weird about time and the unseen realm. And I don't know, I don't understand it, and I don't know how to reconcile it, but it's weird.
But you have the
Go ahead.
I mean, is there kind of a mathematical kind of equation that the numbers that we are subject to are not the same numbers that a heavenly being or God is subject to? Yes. One day is like 1,000 years. 1,000 years, like you have. I don't. You could say, well, that's kind of just it's a metaphor of such. Maybe it's not. Maybe.
I don't think it is a metaphor. And the thing is, when Jesus said, "Today I'm leaving. You could go tell that fox that today I'm leaving. Tomorrow I'm traveling to my destination, and on the third day I'll get there. That very much sounds to me like if he's referring to his return, then that looks like, well, that's a 2-day journey there and back. That could be 2,000 years. Well, we're about 2,000 years from when he ascended, you know?
It's an equation of that what we regard as this is actually, it's almost like the way the dog years are. That it's like this is actually 77 or whatever, you know.
Well, I like where you were going with the quantum thing too, because they know that they can observe a particle, like a quark, that is in one place, and then all of a sudden it's in another place, but it's also in the same place, and they behave very strangely like that.
Yep.
And it's like what Paul said, that, and how Paul even got this idea is amazing.
Yeah.
That he said, here we are on earth, but we're also seated in the heavenly realms.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that atheists, they gloss over way too easily. If Paul is a first century Jew who is just trained in the temple and in the Jewish tradition, why on earth would he make a comment like that it takes 2,000 years of science to actually understand what he's talking about? It's like, those are the kind of things that I think people, that they're mind-blowing, and people just gloss over and they don't even think about those kind of things.
What person of his day and age would say something that bizarre unless they had seen it in a vision or something? But now, here we are in the 21st century. I don't think I doubt that he did. I think he was like, this is something I observed and it's weird. And I'm just going to say it how I saw it. And I think that's what scientists are doing with these quarks. They're looking at this and they're like, we're just calling it how we see it, but we don't get it. I've never heard any scientist explain how it works yet.
Up, down, strange charm, top, bottom. Aren't they? That's the names of the quarks? Something like that.
Yeah, and it's like, who knows
Timmy.
how they work, you know? All right, folks, we're going to wrap this one up. You have been listening to the Hidden Citadel podcast. I would love it if you would go buy our book, The Encyclopedia of Strange Crap.
Or our other books now, like we have the Parafables. I have a new book called Sacred Fire that just came out. We have a whole bunch of really interesting books, and watching this episode has kind of made me want to go and work on a time distortion book. I think that that's one of those things that it really needs to be kind of laid out there, because there are so many weird time distortions, not only in fairy tales and folklore, but literally in the Bible, and also in church history, which is really, really interesting. And so I think a time distortion book might be something that should be put on the burner, or on one of the burners that we can work on at some point. But listen, if you like us, please share this with your friends and family. Tell other people about us and let them know about the Hidden Citadel, because we're small but trying to grow. And until next time, stay in the Citadel, because, as Greg would say, night is coming.
The watchman replies, morning is coming, but night will soon return.